The best time to plant your spring food plot, guys. So here's the thing. A lot of you aren't even planting spring food plots, and that's where you're screwing up. What's the scenario? So the past couple of years, whether it be Iowa, whether it be Missouri, whether it be Wisconsin, Kentucky, all these states, we're dealing with a lot of drought. Drought scenarios in which we don't rely on a spring crop. We're waiting for that late summer, early August, late July blend time where we throw in our blends ultimately, and we till up the soil. We release the soil with a little bit of moisture that we didn't even have, and our food plots never do well. And guess what? If you do that, your food plots don't look good. If your neighbors do that, your food plots don't look good. We need the insurance policy. The insurance policy, whether it be beans, corn, clover, chicory, alfalfas, in the spring is something that we need to be doing, whether we eradicate it when we do see the rain in July or August, or add to it, whatever the case might be. So at the end of the day, these spring plantings are great, but we have to know when to do them. I don't want you to see anybody do them too early, and I don't want to see anybody do them too late, because you're going to have repercussions regardless. So what I ultimately look for is, you can go online, guys, and see in your given area, and I'm not going to necessarily give you an exact date. I'll tell you when I'm going to do some planting, but what you can do is you can go online, you can look up basically what the soil temperature is on average on a yearly basis in accordance to timing and when you should plant. Now, me being the person that I am and always trying to jump the gun, I generally like to go about a week, even 2 weeks prior to that, because that is an average number. And on years in which I planted in that, what they'll call sweet spot, or on the back end of it, if you get caught with a drought, even your spring plantings can really fail or not create as much forage per acre as they probably could. So the main thing that I'm looking for is, once that soil gets closer to that 70-degree mark, give or take a little bit depending on the species that we're trying to plant, and stays there, because we don't want the soil to have frost in it. We don't want it to be so hot and arid that we don't get good germination, because we don't have moisture, guys. So this given scenario that I'm thinking of in my head right now on one of my given properties in Missouri, northern Missouri, where we dealt with one of the worst droughts on record last year for multiple months in a row, I planted my food plots, my spring crops of corn and beans, in the third week, we'll call it, of May. Let's say May 21st, 25th. And those food plots did grow, and they did okay given the scenario. So even with the worst drought ever, I still had the insurance policy of an average food plot with little to no rain for the rest of the summer. But what I realized this year is, if we get even remotely close to the same conditions, I need to be planting earlier. So that in that given scenario, if I were to look up the proper time in which people should be planting a spring crop in that area of Missouri, a lot of times it'll fall in that late May, moderate to middle portion of May into the later weeks of May. And I'm going to jump up to about, let's call it May 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, that 5-day window this year, so I can get ahead of the ball. More importantly than all of that, once those things already line up and we find those correlations and we see the time period in which we need to be getting seed in the ground, guys, to really hone in on the perfect time to get that seed in the ground, I want you guys to keep an eye on your weather forecast. If you're seeing rain, a good spout of rain in a 3-day stretch, there's a good chance one of those days it's going to rain. Let's try and get it in that day prior. If we are going to no-till, that's the best way to do it in a perfect world, to hold soil structure together, to hold organic matter together and hold more moisture in the soil. But if there was a time of the year in which we would break up soil, spring would be a time you could do it. But what it comes down to, guys, is you want to pay attention to your soil temp, you want to pay attention to your forecast, and you kind of want to pay attention to what's happened in years past based off the weather conditions you were given, to create the ultimate formula for when to plant your spring food plots. At the end of the day, guys, if you take anything else from this video, try to plant a spring food plot this year. Whether it's your perennial clover, chicory, alfalfas that can withstand browse pressure super well, and you have half-acre or less food plot, that's a great time to use that. If you want to add some corn, maybe you can mow corn in your state. Deer will walk past standing corn to go to mowed corn every day of the week, or you have a big plot that you want to finally try beans in, guys, and you're going to fence it or use Milorganite, all these different things to keep the deer off it in the growing season. Do that. Because in the years past, guys, we've been working against these droughts in the late summer time frame, and what it comes down to is a lot of your late fall or your late summer, early fall food plots fail, and the spring food plots are ultimately what kill a lot of your big deer, guys. So that's what I would look for when planting your spring food plots.